Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to Rise of Sports, and I'm back with another video. And you might be wondering by my hat, why am I wearing U of H hat? Well, today I'm breaking down college basketball for the first time this year, and I'm pumped about it, let me tell you. So let's just get right into it. All right, what we're doing today, a little fun thing that I like to call breaking down college basketball. I'm really happy because my team, the Houston Cougars, are on top. They've been on top for the second straight week. They've been at number one. They've also were number one for a week, a couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago. But I'm gonna break down a little bit of college basketball. I'm recording this on January 16th, and so y'all probably see this on 21st. Yeah, y'all should see this on the 21st. So I get that there could be a lot that happens between now and then. With different games. I know I'm going to break down some of the top schools and who they play this week, what could change by the time this video comes out. Hopefully not a lot. These rankings will stay the same, obviously, because it's every Monday. The AP Top 25 comes out. But I'm going to break down kind of just what I've seen so far in college basketball, what I think has been surprising, what I think was expected. So let's get into it. So obviously, top 25: Houston, Kansas, Purdue, Alabama, UCLA round out the top 5 right now. All those teams have either 1 or 2 losses. Let's just start with my team, Houston. Houston is 17-1 right now. You know, they're very close with Kansas, and the point total is just 14 more points than Kansas has. They had 34 votes compared to 23 for Kansas. Two very, I guess I'll put these two together. Two really even teams. I think if they played on a neutral court right now, it'd be a very, very intense game. Both teams play very hard defensively. They both are high up in the KenPom rankings defensively. Houston, I think, at number 2. They might have gone up to 1 with Tennessee kind of struggling lately. And Kansas is very high up there as well. But Kansas is, I think, a much better offensive team than Houston is right now. And that's why I think Kansas would give Houston a lot of trouble. But, I mean, Houston's defense obviously could slow Kansas's offense down a little bit, I think. So that's why I think it's kind of Houston more defensive oriented. Kansas is more offensive oriented. Kansas, I mean, they have tons of talent when you look at their roster. Let's go down through the roster. Like KJ Adams is a great player. Grady Dick obviously is amazing. And they just have a lot of Kevin McCullough. Like they have a ton of depth. Jalen Wilson, obviously one of their best players. They have a ton of talent. Not as much height as they did last year. I feel like they had more height last year. But I mean, they have a couple guys at 6'10", 6'11". But let's look at Kansas's schedule, I guess. Why don't we? They beat Duke early on in the season. They lost to Tennessee. That was their one loss this year. And, Tennessee at the time was not as good, but Tennessee now obviously a lot better. Beat Indiana. They stomped Indiana like big time. They just beat Iowa State. They beat them by 2, but they still beat them. What they have coming up and what I think could change by the time this video comes out is where Kansas is. They could honestly have a case for number 1. If they beat both Kansas State and TCU this week, they have a definite case to move up to 1. But if they lose, they could drop a little bit. To me, I mean, at Kansas State on Tuesday is going to be a heck of a game. I mean, Kansas at Kansas State, big game, big environment. Kansas State, one of the biggest games they played in a while, probably. If we just go to Kansas State, we kind of look at their wins and losses. I mean, they beat a very good Texas team. They beat Baylor. They did just lose to TCU. They lost to Butler earlier in the season, which hurts, but they beat a lot of really good teams as well, which is part of the reason why I think they could give Kansas a lot of trouble this week. TCU obviously is another really good team that Kansas State just beat. Correct? I just read that right. Yeah, no, they just lost to TCU. Just beat Kansas State, which is kind of weird. Why Kansas State would be only would be 1 ahead of them, but if you look at TCU, they've lost to Northwestern State, to Iowa State, and to Texas, so they have 3 losses compared to Kansas State's 2 losses. It's kind of jumbled up when you get down, when you really look at all that. But Kansas, I think, definitely could lose one of these games. I mean, when you have a stretch like they have, I mean, look at this stretch they play. I mean, they played some tough teams already. I mean, they played Duke already once. They played Tennessee, played Indiana. Tough games there. But when you get into conference, when you play Kansas State, TCU, Baylor, Kansas State, Iowa State, Texas, Baylor again, Oklahoma, like Big 12 they're stacked this year. Big 12 and basketball is stacked this year. And I mean, they're going to definitely have some of these games they lose. I mean, I'm convinced that they're going to lose some of these games, but they're a heck of a team. I'm looking forward to what they can do this year. Let's go back to the AP poll. Let's just go to Houston. I'm just going to look through them real quick. I'm making this poll not because of Houston, or this video not because of Houston, but I want to go through their wins and losses, or their one loss. But I mean, they played a tough schedule. I'm not going to say it was a super tough schedule or anything, but Oral Roberts is one of the best teams in their conference, which, you know, they don't play in a great conference, but Oregon's a very tough team. Kent State is a very good team. Norfolk State's even a good team. St. Mary's is a good team. Like, all these teams are good teams. In Norfolk State, not as much. St. Mary's close to a top 25 team. Oregon's close to a top 25 team. And Kent State is right up there as well. So a lot of really good teams in there. Obviously, the one loss to Alabama by 6. I was at that game. Very tough game to watch towards the end. You know, Houston was up 15 in that game. Most people probably don't realize that, but Houston was up 15 points in that game. They ended up losing by 6 because they just folded completely at the end. At the time, they're number 8. It looks like they're number 4 right now. A very good team. I mean, if you look, I'll look their Alabama schedule in a second, but real good team. Obviously a big win at Virginia for Houston. That's kind of their biggest win of the year. That will be their biggest win of the year. And Virginia's still very good, and they're still up there. And then you had their conference. They're not going to play tons of talented teams. I think some of these teams could eventually get into the top 25, like a Tulane. I think Tulane could be a team that gets in the top 25. Cincinnati is a very good team. Temple is a pretty good team as well. UCF's a tough team. UCF only lost to Houston by 5. And I think Memphis is a team that has been up and down this year. Memphis almost beat Gonzaga. And they played a couple really good teams. Or Memphis almost beat Alabama is what I should have said, not Gonzaga. Memphis almost beat Alabama. And I mean, this is obviously Houston should run the table in this conference. But I would not be surprised if Houston literally wins the rest of their games. I wouldn't be surprised how many games they have left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I believe they have 13 games left. I would not be surprised if they go 30-1 this year. Would not be surprised if they go 30-1. It's definitely possible. I'm sure there will be one game they trip up, but I don't see them moving out of number 1 anytime soon. Just because of their conference, honestly. And when people are gonna say like, oh well, Houston should be number 1 because they haven't played anybody, they haven't beat anybody. It's like, well, I mean, we play on our conference, you know, like it's not like we didn't try to get good competitions. We played Alabama and Virginia. St. Mary's is close to a top 25 team. Kent State's really high up there. I mean, if you look at St. Mary's, they're technically the 27th ranked team in the country. Kent State is high 30s. So, I mean, you have 4 teams probably in the top 35 that they play, and they're 3-1 in those games. So, you know, 1-1 in quadrant 1 wins or whatever you want to say. I mean, people can say what they want right now, but they're just playing on their schedule. I don't think you can hurt a team for that. Like, you want to say about like TCU and college football, like they played on their schedule. They beat like every team they played, and so like how can you really talk down to them? And I mean, yeah, and they made it to the national championship, and so like I feel like Houston has played well enough in the big games and the tournament to say, okay, they deserve to be there. And I think that's why they're finally at the top, is because of last year. I mean, you beat Arizona, barely lost to Villanova. I think they would have given, whoever they played in the Final Four and possibly the championship game, I think they would have given Kansas, they would have given North Carolina a run for their money. Like, I really do. Anyway, enough about Houston. Purdue has looked very good. They haven't lost one game. They lost to Rutgers on a last second shot. They only lost by 1, but there's been a lot of close games. I mean, look at this. Ohio State won by 2. Nebraska only won by 8. I mean, 8's good, I guess. Michigan State barely won by 1. So Nebraska only won by 3. So there's been a lot of close games for Zach Edey and Purdue. I do think they have a chance to potentially run the table. I don't think they will. I mean, there's Michigan there. There's Michigan State. They got to play again. Penn State's not bad. Indiana, they got to play twice. Wisconsin. So they're not Illinois. Like, they're not going to have an easy road by any means, but I think they can definitely stay up there. And Alabama, kind of the last team I'm going to go deep into, because I don't want this to be, a 30-minute video or anything. So, but, Alabama, they played a really tough out-of-conference schedule. They played Michigan State. They beat them. Lost to UConn, which UConn kind of showed some weakness lately, but at the time were very good. North Carolina was the number 1 team in the country. But, I mean, now they're not even ranked. So, like, can you really put that much stock in that? I don't know. They beat Houston. They beat Memphis, a good team. They lost to Gonzaga. That's kind of where they started to fall. Mississippi State, they got a win against. Kentucky, they won against. Sorry, not when they started to fall. When they started to pick it up. Mississippi State, they won against Kentucky. They blew the doors off. Arkansas, they beat pretty handily. And then LSU. But again, I mean, Alabama, they're in a tough conference as well. All these games are not going to be easy. Oklahoma's not going to be easy. Florida's not going to be easy. Auburn, Tennessee. Like, these games are not going to be easy. I could definitely see them, only losing 1 or 2 more games the rest of the year. They're a good team. They're definitely up there. Gonzaga obviously has climbed back after kind of losing a couple of games that they shouldn't have probably. You got Tennessee, Virginia. Tennessee, great defensive team. Virginia, again, another good defensive team. And then you got a lot of just solid teams up here. Biggest takeaway from college basketball so far, Big 12 is run college basketball this year. When you look at the Big 12 teams, I mean, Houston will be a Big 12 team next year. So you got that to look forward to. I mean, you got Kansas up there. You got Texas up there. Iowa State, Kansas State. Iowa State's Big 12, right? I'm not tripping, right? Yeah. Iowa State, Big 12. So you got Kansas, you got Texas. You have Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU. 3 in a row right there. And then you got Baylor up there as well. So, I mean, you have a lot of really, really talented teams in the Big 12. Big 12 is running college basketball this year. There's some good Big 10 schools, a couple, Purdue, I guess, is the big one. Ohio State was up there for a little bit. But, man, I mean, I'm excited for us this year. Obviously, as a Houston fan, I get very pumped up about college basketball. I'm really excited for the rest of this year as we get closer to March. Obviously, if you go to U of H, or if you're ever at a U of H game, I will probably be there. Come up, say hi to me if you see me. But anyway, that's whatever you want to do. But anyway, Houston, Kansas, definitely the 2, I think, obvious best teams. I would say Alabama is a little better than Purdue. If I had to rank right now, I'd say Houston, Kansas, and Alabama are probably the 3 top teams right now. If any of them played each other, it would be a dogfight. Rest of college basketball, I didn't even mention UCLA. They've been playing really great lately. But, that's kind of what I have to say for now. If you want me to do kind of another breakdown for anything in college basketball, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next Rise of Sports.